Greetings, folks. I am Captain Blade J52 here with another episode of Pilot Review Show, and I am joined this week by my merry cohorts. We have with us the Wolf of Clan Timber, back from his excursion in the wilds.
And it was
Timberwolf.
It was amazing.
Yes, he had to appease his inner wolf, you know. Then we have our RP hologram of the hour, fresh back from the Gamma Quadrant and helping to rebuild the Dominion, Artie.
Hello.
Our resident Neela won't be with us this evening. He was, off trying to steal plans for the third Death Star and stop Palpatine from rising from the dead. So, we wish him luck in that endeavor. But, anyways, he should be back with us this next week, hopefully. Bit of a note as we go into this episode. There was a bit of a technical mishap. We don't have the budget build for this particular episode. That happened to be lost with the technical issue that I mentioned. But I'll try to tack something onto this video after the fact for you guys, so we can have some kind of basic something for you all. We don't like to just go without some kind of even just a basic build for you guys. But with that said, we do have some interesting stuff to get through this week, as well as some of our thoughts and some of the things we have noticed with the new Picard trailer that you guys will be glad to see. But and we're looking forward to you guys' thoughts on, so let's go ahead and get started. Now, the first thing we have is meeting the Star Trek Online devs at STLV on Friday, August the 2nd at 12 p.m. Live interview with Priority One and Rekha Sharma. And then we also have on Sunday, August the 4th at 12 p.m. a Star Trek Online meet and greet at Quark's Bar. Yay. So, any comments from you guys on this one?
I will say from the last meet and greet, when I went to STLV, it was superb. You got to kind of run into people that you may have been in a fleet with for, years now and not even realize that's who they actually are. You get to actually meet some of the devs, talk face to face about some of the things you've seen, talk about some of the topics. And it feels like it makes things more real with Star Trek Online. I feel like it doesn't just put, this is just another voice. This is just another meta for the game that you just have to do this and the other just to play the game. It actually puts more of a person that you now can see and hear, and other people that that have the same issues, the same strife going through the game. So now it feels more solid. You know what I mean? If you ever had that existential crisis for the game.
Yeah, it makes sense, I guess. What about you, Sir Timber? Any comments, thoughts on the shenanigans?
I mean, not really. It's the normal fare. The one big thing that we're waiting on, of course, is next Sunday. During the same day as their meet and greet, it's also when they're doing their big panel to reveal what's coming up next in the game. So I'm sure someone's going to get photos or a video so that people can better know earlier than probably that week's 10 forward what's coming out. And
which I'm glad you actually mentioned, good sir, because that brings us to our second blog, which is actually learning the future of Star Trek Online at STLV.
Surprise.
Yeah, they're essentially doing that as part of a panel. There's supposed to be a special guest, which one can only assume is going to be the next big voice actor that's coming in, or a returning voice actor. And they're going to discuss, at the very least, probably the content up until the winter event, potentially. So I'm expecting our next roadmap to come out between next Sunday and next Wednesday as an official guideline.
We've got, speaking of our panels, we have the Inside Trek, Star Trek gamers and their games. That's going to be Thursday at 1:15 p.m. to 2:15 p.m. at the DeForest Kelly Theater. We're going to have John Van Critters, or Kitters, I think.
Walkers.
I know I butchered your name, dude, if you ever do see this, so I apologize, but yeah, the dude with the name moderating, and then we're going to have some of the various game designers there, game devs there, such as Thomas Marone, our lead ship designer and UI artist, and quite a few other people at these different panels. We're also going to have the Star Trek Online Explorers The Age of Discovery, which is going to be at 2 p.m. to 2:45 p.m. on Friday, where we talk about a little bit more stuff with the Age of Discovery, I guess how that went down, so on. Then on Sunday, 2:15 to 3:15, we're going to have a first look at Star Trek Online's next update with a special guest from Star Trek Discovery, as well as a few meet and greets. So, yeah, it looks like a lot of good stuff potentially coming up. But, yeah. So if you're heading out to STLV, definitely check that stuff out. And definitely keep an eye on it, because I'm looking forward to see what they come out with. What kind of stuff we're going to see on our update, or on our updated roadmap when they give us one of those. But anyways, coming to our third article of the evening, we have our PC patch notes for the 25th. Now, some of it is just your basic bug fixing, that sort of thing. But there is one very big thing we did want to talk about that actually did come about, and some of your basic bug fixing resolved an issue that could sometimes prevent completion of friend or foe. I know that was a very big issue. The consoles that were previously restricted to Jem'Hadar starships can now be equipped on any starship, so that'll make things a bit more interesting. And for a couple of folks that actually tagged me on the forums, resolved an issue that was causing mycelial lighting to not work properly except with fire at will. So for a few of you guys that were talking about that should have been fixed. If it is not, then let me know either via PM through the forums. As Darkblade JK, you can find me just by looking for the moderators, or ding one of the other moderator crew, and we'll make sure it gets passed along. Or one of the screwball co-hosts of mine here. But I know Timber's going to have some thoughts on this. I want to get him first in just a moment, and then we'll go to Artie for how this could potentially affect the RP folks. But Reputation space shields are now eligible for re-engineering. Increased the plasma resistance on the assimilated regenerative shield array to 20%, and resolved an issue that caused the shield drain resistance on the Delta Alliance Unimatrix shield array to not function. So, I know you've got thoughts on these shields, good sir. So, Sir Timberwolf, lay it on us, good sir.
Well, essentially with this one, the moment it happened, I was on a plane flight back home. I was coming back from California, not from Cryptic. They were further north. Anyway, different story. So, Blade was able to test this a little bit, send me photos of what we were seeing. I was able to test it further when I got home. And essentially what this has done is the newest shields, our Gamma Task Force and our Discovery shields, the moment they came out, they were rerollable. So that was day one. What this has done, though, it's because they have rerollable mods going all the way back to the assimilated shield from the first reputation, the Mako shield, the Adaptive Mako, the Omega. You're going all the way back to those. It's actually opened up new options when it comes to in-game as far as your shield, because thanks to all the power creep, thanks to all the personal endeavor boosts, you have a little bit more play on what you can use when it comes to in-game play now with these shields. And I'm going to link it in team chat, just so Blade can show it off on chat. That is a re-rolled Nukara shield, which I put it in chat for him. But that's re-rolled, and as you can see, a little different on its capacity and region than what you might see, but now it's got 2 Res All mods on it. So all energy damage, So reduce all energy damage to shields by 10% twice, plus radiation plus Tetrion. A decent regen, decent capacity. You can play with those. The built-in is the reflection proc and the radiation and the Tetrion. So it just makes it where it's a little bit better. And quite honestly, I don't have them on me right now. I did the same thing to the Mako shield and to the Iconian. With the Iconian, I've got my debuff removal. It's, still decent shield cap and regen, but it ends up you have a 15% energy damage reduction and another 10%. So it doesn't stack 1-to-1. There's some diminishing returns, but still the better part of 25% reduction. With Mako, you're getting a huge amount of plasma resist with all energy damage mods, and you're getting power levels when you get hit. So just those are my top 3 shields after this reroll right now, because you really don't need to have one specific shield anymore with these options. And
just to show folks right quick, I've actually pulled up the sorry to interrupt. I was going to say I pulled up the photos so folks can see what you're talking about. I've got the before photo, like you can see what Timber's saying. You've got the basic, reduces all damage by 15%. Then we go to the after. This is more the way I personally would re-roll it as a tank, but you can see you've got the baked in 15%, you've got an additional 10% down here, so you're looking at about a 25% reduction. Now there is some hooky math stuff that we can get into, but yeah, that's...
It opens there's a lot more options now, so you don't have to just be like, with me right now, my top shield that I like in Elite runs is the Tilly shield, because it's giving me extra damage to shields, and shields are just sponges at the highest end in Elite content. But with this, I can make my Iconian shield even tankier, or the Temporal Defense that's a regenerative shield, and as you lose shield capacity on that, your regen increases. You could re-roll that to a regen times 4 and just have tremendous amounts of regen on that shield. There's just a lot more options, especially if you're able to work on your personal endeavors, boost your shield hardness, the shield healing, and everything else. There's a lot more options now at the high end to experiment and play with shielding. And then once we're able to re-roll the other things, because now that they've got the shields, next thing is either deflectors or engines. Warp cores are probably going to be last. There's going to be a lot more combo play here. Especially if you're able to work out mods on your impulse engines for like the Nukara engines the right way. Get some extra speed in them. I mean, there's just going to be a lot more options here. And for me, I like it. Because it's not just going to be cookie cutter with certain shields anymore. You can re-roll them to kind of almost fit what you want for a specific run or build.
Yeah. So, I've been kind of cycling through some of the different sets here for you guys, so you can kind of see that. But you can see Temporal Defense, one of my personal favorites. Now you can get up to a 20% with that. Iconian's still pretty good. So like we have Lucari before, you can kind of see how the mods are. We can re-roll that. You can see the after. I already showed Iconian. Dyson. Here's the Delta Alliance before. Delta Alliance after. And keep in mind, folks, this is the way that I personally would re-roll them. This isn't necessarily how you have to re-roll them, but just to show some examples of how the shields can actually change. Then let me pull up the Mako. Actually, I just cycle through the ones for Omega, because I did all of them on Tribble. So this is the Omega 4 shield before. You can see we've got Cap 3, Cap Regen, and then a Regeneration mod. And then we went to a Cap 2, Regen 2, and a Resol. So we actually picked up a bit more damage resistance, slightly less capacity, and overall regen stayed about the same. So that's the Omega Force. Here's the Dokara. And then personally, the way I would roll it. We have our Mako before. This is standard Mako. And then standard Mako after. Here's your assimilated set before. And assimilated set after. It's virtually... actually picked up a little bit of extra capacity here. I kept the radiation resistance because I like having that. So picked up a little extra capacity. And then slightly less regen, but overall more damage negation on the shield. This is your adapted Mako before, or the Klingon Honor Guard if you're on the KDF side. And then our shield after. But I know I'll give some of my thoughts in a minute, but I'm just curious from the RP side of things, Artie, how is this potentially going to affect you guys and some of your builds?
Easily enough, it actually makes a lot of the out-of-character builds a little bit more adaptable. Now we don't have to use the more modern sets that don't really fit our builds correctly. And now, if some people want to go with a more direct in-character use to what we have in-game use, like if I have a ship that's totally decked out with Mako stuff, and I'm not actually using the Mako shields and whatnot, no one's going to really gripe or complain, in character to out of character. But now that we have that, that accessibility, now it's probably going to allow more in character builds to be a thing. And overall, it's just been a great thing to actually have these older shields actually be modernized, if anything. So.
Okay. Makes sense. I know for me, I'm actually glad this came about. This opens up a bit more possibilities as far as the tank side of things go. Maybe I think a shield needs a little bit more damage resistance, but is good on virtually everything else. Well, I could roll into a Res-All mod. That's, for me, something that will probably be standard on most of the shields I use, just because that's what I like having. I like knowing no matter what I'm fighting, I've got some kind of damage negation there. I'm not completely... what's the word I'm looking for? I'm not completely unprepared for certain foes, if that makes sense. So there is some kind of something there, no matter what I'm going up against. And for some of my other tanks out there, maybe you're thinking, and even, the DPS people or science people that are out there, maybe you think a shield has too much as far as regen, or too much capacity, or something. You can now balance your shields out a bit more to where it actually fits your playstyle better. Maybe you like a particular covariant shield, but you think it doesn't have enough regen. Well, now you could roll into a bit more regen, potentially. Or you think the opposite for a regenerative shield. It has too much regen and needs a little bit of extra capacity. Well, now you can balance that out a bit more. And you can tailor the shields towards who you're going to be fighting, even if that's something you wanted to do. So, definitely a lot more flexibility. And I'm kind of like Timber. I hope that we get to re-engineer our engines and our deflectors pretty soon as well. I know at one point Bordicus had said he wanted virtually everything to be re-rollable. It was just a matter of getting everything put in the system. And I'm very glad to see that they're still working on this. Very welcome addition. But with that said, that's some of the major articles we have as far as in-game. Now, the big thing I know everybody had been talking about, we're a little bit behind on getting some of our thoughts out there on this, is actually our reactions to the new Picard trailer. And there are a few things that I know our resident Artie has that he's going to want to go over. One of which actually had me and Timber about falling out of our seats whenever he first pointed out to us. But we'll get to that one in just a moment. But, Sir Artie, what do you have for us?
Okay, so I'm sure everyone has seen the San Diego Comic-Con's little teaser trailer of Star Trek Discovery, Picard. Blech, I did it. I said I wasn't going to do it. Star Trek Picard. So if you haven't seen it, it's on YouTube. You can easily find it. I'm pretty sure we can add the link in the description later. But let's go off with our first picture, which would be of the Borg cube that you see in the little trailer. First off, I'm happy to see the Borg kind of making a re-emergence, because as we saw in, like, let's start with, like, just vanilla STO. We always knew that there was a Borg invasion sometime after Nemesis and before our first day of STO. We knew there was some sort of revamped Borg invasion because we had the Unimatrix Command Lance giant, you know, the giant tube Borg ships showing back up as the red alerts. We knew there was something going on.
Pickle ships.
Those, yes. So we knew there was something going on. So I'm happy to see that the Borg may be another big foe again in Picard. As we can see in this photo, the Borg cube looks a little damaged, has what I could guess is force fields, and I will get to that in the next picture. Force fields in some of the exposed sections. Looking at it, kind of reminds me of a lot of the STO missions where we're having to watch the Tal Shiar collect Borg ships, like that one Borg sphere that I can't remember the name of the mission now, but we had to basically tail a Romulan ship from collecting Borg technology. And from what I'm guessing here, as you can barely make out a ship off to the right and left of it, of the Borg cube, there might be Romulan ships doing exactly that, just salvaging technology from wreckage Borg cubes, or hell, maybe they found a way of just demolishing the Borg to begin with, and now are just retrieving, doing the salvage operation. But moving to our, well, actually no, before I move on, your thoughts of this current picture, what do you guys think?
Well, I honestly thought it was potentially a fusion cube when it first came out. And for me, that would have been a really big deal, because that would have meant that they were borrowing elements from the Star Trek Armada series. And that's something I really, really hope they would have done. And for those of you that aren't familiar with the Armada series, basically the reason that would have been a big deal is, just like its name sounds, a fusion cube, or a tactical fusion cube. If you've ever played the games, that's essentially 8 cubes fused into one giant massive cube, or 8 tactical cubes fused into one giant massive cube, and it's one super cube basically that has the power and weaponry of 8 individual cubes fused into one design. So I was kind of hoping they would go that route. Kind of understand why they didn't, because, well, that would be very, very broke, but would have been something fun and interesting to see. But I want to know what's going on that this cube has this much of itself blown up. Have they come a long way with anti-Borg tech? Have they been still utilizing the future tech that Admiral Janeway brought back at the end of Voyager? What's happened with the transphasic torpedoes and all this anti-Borg technology that we've had? So, yeah, that's kind of some of my thoughts. What about you, Sir Timber?
Yeah, I kind of thought the fusion cube myself, but it almost looks like it's a shell. Like, it's a cube that maybe it's what's left after a transphasic explosion. I don't know. I honestly don't know what to think yet. They've just given us little teasers with this image here, and when I first saw it, my thought was, wait a minute, why are the Borg here? Wait, why are there Romulan ships around it? So I was obviously hoping for a Star Trek Online, Tal Shiar reference somewhere in there. But it's just too vague. I'm hoping that with this image they do explain with maybe a second trailer what's going on. There is a lot of hope here, though, that if the Borg end up being a power player in this series, maybe the Borg could finally be a challenge in the game again. Damn.
Oh yeah. So, moving on to the second photo, it does look kind of wonky, I will say, but this is a mid-second clip of what looks to be inside the cube. From this photo, you can barely see it on the right, just near the shield. There's a craft that, if we were watching it from the trailer, would be moving further into this cube. My guess, just guessing, is that there's some reason that we have to the team has to actually go into this destroyed cube, try to find something inside, all this wreckage, all this leftover mechanical parts, and who knows, maybe find information to what is currently going on, to whatever the plot is. Although we still have no idea what that could be, what exactly is actually going on. I have the strangest feeling that with such a Borg focus, the STO might actually get a possible revamp of the Borg. Like how we saw them in the tutorial missions. Imagine them now revamped to fit more as we will see them in Picard. I have that strangest feeling, but I'm not too sure.
Okay.
So not much there on that. This third shot is the another clip where we see a bit into what could be a Romulan prison facility. And what I'm currently guessing by looking at the details, you see a couple of soldiers with Romulan-looking weapons, the pointed ears, the hair, and the general uniform looks very Romulan. But looking at the technology next to the guard on the left there, as well as just the signs at the very bottom, I'm pretty sure I can confirm that this is a facility meant to be a prison for liberated Borg, or just Borg in general. Because we see another image of this, which I sadly do not have a still for, of some of the main characters that we saw throughout the trailer, kind of looking in prison garbs in this facility. And a little tidbit that I can guess confirms this is that this facility has gone 5,843 days without assimilation. Not many other facilities use that specific. Don't just throw assimilation around and just say, oh, it's just for these Bolians over here, So I'm pretty sure it's a facility specific for Borg. But your thoughts on that? I feel like this is giving more into that Tal Shiar bit that I was mentioning earlier. But your thoughts?
Well, in some of the missions in STO, we did learn that they were experimenting with Borg tech. We learned that they would sometimes experiment on some of the prisoners they had from the Romulan Republic. Now, this is existing in a time that, as far as we know, would be before the Republic, assuming a somewhat STO-inspired timeline. So we could see this could be something that leads into some of the missions that we see in STO. They may borrow elements from this to say, oh yeah, this is some of the stuff that they did, and yeah, that's about all I've really got with it.
Timber?
Yeah, I'm hoping they're doing some retconning here, but honestly with this right here, it honestly seems like it's going to be a Borg prison that's being guarded by the Romulans. Which, if it does tie into the Tal Shiar, then it could tie into our current storylines that we have now with the experiment of the Borg. This is where it could have started, as they captured this cube, and they're experimenting on former drones somehow that have lost their connection. They'd have to do a lot of plot development to really explain it out thoroughly to have any kind of sense, but we'll have to wait and see.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Now, the fourth image, in the trailer you have Picard talking to what appears to be a Starfleet admiral, but we're not going to focus more on them, but into a very pixelated image right behind Picard, like off in the back right of him. So, if we could actually zoom in as best we can, I'll try to detail of what we might be seeing. So, what we could be seeing in that photo, you could barely make it out through the glare of the window and the glass pane and all that, but that appears to be, if I'm not mistaken, a straight-up galaxy map of the Alpha and Beta Quadrant. You see the Romulans, the Klingons at the bottom right, the Federation straight in the middle. Looks like Cardassian's far off to the left. It looks like it's pulled straight from the STO galaxy map. It's what it looks like. But
just to show you guys a comparison on screen, I'll pull up the galaxy map. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So
yeah, see, just remove all the fancy lines and all the stuff with the Delta Quadrant, the specific symbols. It looks almost like that. And of course, at this time, the Klingon Federation War hasn't started, so the Klingons wouldn't have that bottom left sector of the Beta Quadrant, so that would still be fairly blue, like we see in this still. So the Federation, all that blue straight in the center, and what looks to be more onto the left and top of that map, is just very prominent. And the Klingons are just kind of looking pushed into a corner on that map. Romulans look very large, as what we see in the galaxy map before, like when right before the walls came down in STO, and it just became one giant Beta Quadrant, Alpha Quadrant map. No, I was kind of excited to see that. I felt like when I first heard Star Trek Picard was in that area, that it could easily lead up to STO. Like, oh, they're going to put Star Trek Online reference right in the back, and everyone's going to look and go, STO's officially canon. It's on screen. We're in Memory Alpha, guys. I know it's already been mentioned once or twice. Now we're on screen. We got this. Now I can have my character running around like this is for real. But yeah, your thoughts? I mean, exciting stuff,
STO is canon confirmed.
I really hope so.
STO equals canon confirmed. Galaxy map confirmed. Yeah, that's actually going to be very cool if that's the case, and that actually is a STO-inspired map. Because, to me, that opens up a lot of possibilities, and this is something that I believe I've said in previous streams. If CBS and Cryptic play their cards right, from a business standpoint, it could make both of them a lot of money. You figure, have the Picard show drop a few references and hints, that sort of thing. Not, except maybe, a few little oddball things here or there that could easily be retconned in the game. They play their cards right, the Picard series could easily lead into STO, and then CBS and Cryptic can be like, oh yeah, you've watched the Picard show, yeah, you want to see what happens afterwards, come over here and, play this game, it's a canon game, and that sort of thing, and play off that, and then CBS and Cryptic both do very, very well because of that. And maybe we'll see some new blood come into the game because of it. More people realize, oh, I can go here, I can make my own captain, I can have my own adventures, and all this sort of thing. And it could end up being very good for the game. And perhaps even the franchise as a whole. So I kind of hope that's what that is. I don't know if that is going to be what that is, but it looks pretty much exactly like a STO map. So yeah, that's you can see the Klingons, the Romulans, a bit of Federation. What looks like the
Cardassians off to the left there, yeah.
the Cardassians off to the left. You've got a bit of the some of the what's the word I'm looking for? Some of the sectors from the Delta Quadrant where we took the Iconian gateways back. So there's definitely some intriguingness there. But like I was saying, this is just one particular shot, and it is heavily pixelated as I zoom in. But what's some of your thoughts on this, Sir Timber? I've ranted enough for the moment.
I mean, the potential here is staggering. If they were to include something that even remotely resembles STO canon, and they were to directly tie in Picard to the game. I mean, CBS has no legal binding that they have to. They could just straight up undo everything that is, before the game, as far as the lore that we have leading up to the game. They can just completely shatter all of that with the first, 3 episodes of Star Trek Picard. But if this was to be a sector map that resembles close to what we got, and they start doing tie-ins directly into the game, that would be a win-win for CBS and for Cryptic. I mean, they could directly influence content just like we do at Discovery. And I know that's been a very touchy subject for people for the past year. But it was because it was a live show. Well, if now they're doing things that directly tie into the years prior to the initial game launch in 2010, and that story, where we see that Borg invasion and reference the Star Trek Online novel The Needs of the Many with the Long War, and it starts to make those things canon, like, yep, it happened, here it is, you watch it in Star Trek Picard, you want to see the after effects, you see them in the game. Some very, very nice potential here. Very nice, because then things could bleed off from Star Trek Picard saying it happened a few years later, and it could be post-game. The game won't last forever, nothing ever does, except for World of Warcraft. I'm not sure how that's happening. But, just throwing it out there. But, I mean, eventually, they could basically do something that could be considered a post-game. I mean, right now, with all the iterations, I believe we've only had a few years pass in-game. The game's been live for almost 10 years. But I think only, 3 years have passed, at most.
I think so, yeah.
Something like that? 3, maybe 4 years? So there could come a point where they do a tie-in with Star Trek Picard to something that happens for, let's say, the next big, 25th century series. It happens in 2425. And it's after the events of everything, and that's when they debut their official Enterprise F, which could be the Odyssey class we've got now, and they confirmed that. It could be the Enterprise G because of something that happened here, but it's referencing the game directly. There's just a lot of potential that we don't know about here that, if the cards were to align, could mean a very, very good thing. Because then, it is a lot of influx for new players. Yes, there are going to be a whole lot of noobs in the game, but there's a lot of potential for numbers to go up. You actually have more people to play with. More people that are learning the game that can learn all the different play styles that you can do in this game, and all sorts of shenanigans that can be done in this game from day one. It's, almost mind-blowing what we could be seeing, not just in the TV universe, but in video games.
Exactly my thoughts. That's just the potential. It's wordless. I can't really describe it any further than both of you have already.
I do hope they, like I say, I do hope they go that route. That would be, it could be a second golden age for the game, and could be a very big thing for the franchise. Be like, you see this, like Timber was saying, you see this stuff on Picard, now you want to come play it in the game and see what's going on, and could be very good for that aspect. So, I guess we'll see.
Alright. And for this last still, we kind of get a shot of what could be the hero ship bridge for Star Trek Picard. A lot of new faces. You got Picard all the way over there on the left, but not really sure who these people are, what the bridge is to what ship. So we kind of have an unknown variable to this. So all that, but just looking at the visuals, I kind of hope we get a bridge similar to this in game. It gives a very rustic feel. Like, if anyone has seen the sci-fi show The Expanse, it kind of gave that same feel as when we first see the command area of the Rocinante. So you actually get the feel of, this is just metal walls. We're living more or less, if I can speak, at the edge of our seats, trying to get to the next stop, kind of doing the whole renegade kind of move on this. Kind of gives that same thing when you kind of watch Firefly, Serenity and all that. It gives that same feel, kind of. I feel like with this setup bridge, but just the general look, it's a brighter set. I will give it that compared to some of the early stuff of Discovery. But just the general, the technology's obviously moved on to having better CGI, so we have holographic everything. Oh, that seems pretty cool. Besides that, what do you guys think about this image of what could be a new bridge?
I want to know what the heck it is, and where I get it, how I can fly it, and how well it tanks. Just to put it bluntly. And yeah, that's kind of me. I want to know more about the ship, what it is, what can it do, that sort of thing. Because it kind of, to some extent, reminds me a bit of, for lack of a better way of describing it coming to mind, a sort of proto-Odyssey type bridge. You're getting into some of the holo consoles like you have on the Odyssey. You've got a lot more spacious bridge layout than some of the previous designs have been. So for me, it's interesting because, like I say, I want to know what they're going to do with it. Is this the bridge of the new Enterprise F? Could this be like what they're doing for an on-screen Odyssey? There's a lot of variables that we just don't know. And kind of like Timber was saying, we know what the Enterprise J is going to look like as far as that goes in the 26th century, but you've still technically got several more variants to go. You've still got the Enterprise F, unless they outright, make that the Odyssey. So you've potentially got the F, you've got the G, the H, and the I. So you're looking at potentially 4 ships there to get through. And that's assuming that the Enterprise E is not still around somewhere. Which we don't even know that yet.
Very true.
So you're potentially, but assuming that it's not around and that it was destroyed or decommissioned, whatever, you're potentially looking at 4 other Enterprises that they've got room to play with until we get to the timeline of the J. And I think I actually sat down and I did the math one day. And you're looking at, assuming a post-2410, you're looking at each one of the other ships being able to serve at least a good 50 years before they get destroyed. And we get to the J. So there's a lot of room there left before we get to that point in the future. So, like I say, I want to know more. I really do. Sir Timber.
Okay, so I guess I'm the only one here that actually has a problem with this image.
Oh?
Because it looks like it's a freighter. I'm sorry. It does...
Oh, no.
It looks like it's a freighter. It looks like it is a civilian vessel. It doesn't look... It looks like it might have some of the perks of a Federation vessel with some of the technological leaps they have with the holographic consoles and maybe some of the equipment they have on board. But to me, it looks like it's just a freighter or a civilian craft, like maybe the Omari. That was a civilian starship that we have in game. So for me, it's weird with what I know of Picard and what we know of from All Good Things, even though that was an alternate future. His first thing, if he's trying to solve a problem, is not, okay, well, I struck out maybe one time with Starfleet, so I'm just going to go with civilians. Like, he has friends. And for him to just be like, you know what, I'm just going to jump on this random freighter with a whole bunch of people, I don't know. I mean, for me, a lot of shit would have to happen in his background for him to just be like, yep, I'm going rogue. Federation said no, I'm doing it anyway. And maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just, maybe reading into it too much. But just going off of this, it is very weird to see Captain Picard, or at this point he could be Admiral or Ambassador, former, on what essentially, from what our chat has said, a space tractor trailer hunting down answers for whatever he's going after. It seems weird, which to me the connotation is, okay, he's on a civilian vessel, which means if he does the wrong thing, he could get himself in trouble with Starfleet. That's why I've got a lot of wait and see in my vocabulary when it comes to the show, because we have some really good shots with the Borg and the Romulans and, some of the things when they see Starfleet Academy, and then I see this and I'm like, and I don't know.
Might I pose a theory, good sir? Which you kind of got me thinking. We had talked about earlier how some of these folks look like they may have been in what looks like that Romulan prison. Well, one of the things that Picard talks about is, the mystery woman. Who is she? If she's who he thinks that she is, then she's probably in a lot of danger. Well, if Picard wanted to try to get some answers and not risk a lot of people, what might he do? He might go undercover. He might try to infiltrate the prison, assuming, of course, that's what it is. And this could be a stolen craft that they're using to escape the prison.
That's what I'm saying. It's just a lot of ifs. But I cannot see this as a Federation starship bridge. I can't. Just because there is a certain amount of elegance when we all see a starship bridge, regardless of whatever bridge it is, whether we're going to the Constitution class, you go all the way back to the NX-01, it's, more, what is the word? Rustic, but it does have a type of elegance for a Federation starship. You're going into this era, and at the Galaxy class refits at this point, you've got Sovereign refits at this point. You're looking towards the future with Odyssey classes and the Adventine and things of that. There would be, it would look something like it would almost be grand, even if it was a small bridge. It would look grand. It would look refined. This is a freighter. That's what I'm saying. I can't see this as a Federation starship. Maybe it's a freighter. Maybe it's a quote-unquote borrowed craft or a stolen craft or something like that. Maybe out of the fan movie Renegades that was done.
Yeah, I felt a lot of that had a lot of things mimicking Renegades.
It could be that. I just can't see it being official, modified Miranda class or something like that. I can't see it as an official Federation starship, ship of the line kind of deal. It's going to be something that is very undercover or very civilian to me. But that's why I say I like most of what I've seen from the trailer. But a lot I have on hold until I see it, because there's just some strange notes. And I want a better explanation, considering how early we are. I mean, we were originally with this show, we were looking at, it was going to be released in the next few months, and now it's been pushed back to sometime 2020. So with that kind of a lead time, you never know. Some of these things might stay the same, some might change. depending on how long it takes. And I kind of remember this kind of hype with Star Trek 2009. The first teaser image, which was the new Enterprise, and then everybody was like, "Oh dear God, it's a terrible Enterprise design." Then when we finally get up to it, we find out it's an alternate universe, which means it doesn't have to look like what we were used to. It's an alternate timeline, which means alternate design specifications. Okay, makes more sense. You threw in an alternate timeline, that makes sense. But this is just, I need more answers. Why is Picard on what looks like a civilian vessel? What's really going on? Who is this girl that they've made a focal point of what he's trying to figure out? Heck, why don't they let him sit in the chair for that scene? I don't know. Just a lot of things. I'm excited for this. I just have way too many questions to really go off the deep end and just start shouting it from the rooftops about Picard, because there's just a lot of unknowns for me that I won't start going yay until I know.
I can agree with a lot of those points. No, it makes a lot of sense. Don't scream from the rooftops until you have confirmation. No, I completely agree.
Mm-hmm.
I do have, it does pose the question for STO specifically on this, with how we saw 7 of 9 in there talking to Picard, and how we see Picard himself, the Borg, and all the Romulans, or at least what we can guess is currently Romulans from what we saw in the teaser trailer. Would Cryptic and all them go back through the early stages of STO, modify models, change a few voice acting lines, completely have Jerry Ryan come back in to reprise her role as 7 and 9, modify the Delta Quadrant story with how she currently behaves in Picard. Because if anyone here has played the Delta Rising season STO, that she still seems kind of carbon copied from how she was in Voyager. It didn't seem like there was much progression. And then we see her in Picard, and she's just like any other person, just with Borg implants. With all the what the hell are you doing back here, Picard, kind of thing, So I just wonder, will they get Jerry Ryan to come back and do that? Would they have people starting referencing Picard directly in STO? Who knows? I'm excited either way. There's as we keep on mentioning, a lot of potential. So that's all I have. Any final marks?
I think you kind of hit it on the head, good sir. It makes it interesting to see if they will go back and what they'll do if they need to retcon something. Anyway, but is that all you have for us, good sir?
That's all I got.
Well, anyways, folks, that's kind of what we got for a show this week. Like I said, there was a bit of a mishap with the budget build. I'll try to slap something in after the fact for you guys, where we can at least have some kind of a basic something, even if it's just a shuttle build, basic something for you guys. But we'll get that taken care of sometime in the very near future. But like I say, that's what we've got for a show this week. We kind of wanted to at least get on, go through some of the Picard stuff, discuss some of the potential implications we see for the game. And yeah, it's going to get interesting from here on, folks. I definitely think that. I'm sure my co-host will agree with me on that. But anyways, folks, that's what we've got for a show this week. Thank you guys for joining us. Again, I do apologize for the lack of budget build this week. Again, that will get tacked on after the fact. Once we get the actual video up, we'll have some kind of basic something for you guys. But in the meantime, if you guys have any requests for budget builds, like we say, do let us know. We do take requests on that front. And, we may just, let us know what you're looking for. Hey, I'm a space, I'm wanting to be a space wizard, or I'm wanting to be, I'm wanting to just blow stuff up with my beams, or I'm wanting to be a tank, whatever it is, and say, I've got this kind of a ship, this is what I'm looking at, I've not really got the greatest budget, or I'm looking to go uber high-end, whatever it is, we'll hook you up with a build. And if you think that your gear and your setup's in order, but it's your piloting that needs a little bit of work, get a brief little video clip of your piloting to us. We'll go through that and offer you some tips and tricks on how to improve and to get more mileage out of your ship and your build. Perhaps even run a couple of missions with you in game if need be. But we'll definitely get you taken care of on that front. If you guys have any bugs, feel free to let us know. We do pass those straight on to the developers if and when somebody does leave one for us. Feel free to let one of my fellow cohorts here know. They'll pass it on to me. I'll pass it straight to the developers. We'll guarantee that it gets seen by the right people. Feel free to let me know, on YouTube or in game if you've got my ad handle, or feel free to PM me on the forums. I'm DarkBladeJK on the forums. And you can find me with the little green moderator text next to my name. We'll make sure it gets seen by the right people. If you've got any requests for the RP Corner, feel free to let Artie know. Say, hey, how do I tackle this build? Or what's your advice on this type of event? Or, whatever it is you're looking for RP-wise, and he may just talk about your topic on air. But on the way out the door, a shout out to our good friends over at the Temporal Armada. Be sure to check those guys out as well. Another good, fun, entertaining bunch of folks y'all will enjoy. And also a shout out to our other good friends over at the Kurtang Pirate Radio. The party is there. They've always got a good selection of music going. Never know what you're really going to get with those guys. But, anyways, folks, thanks for joining us this week. We'll hopefully be back to our regular schedule and our regular bit of shenanigans next week. I reckon Neela should be back with us and everything. He's just had a rough time with his work schedule lately, but that kind of stuff happens. But anyways, folks, thanks for joining us. We'll see you again next week, and for now, this is the Pilot Review Show reminding you to have your tribbles spayed or neutered. Goodbye, everybody.
See ya.